Imagine you could sell one of the most famous landmarks in the world. Not just once, but twice. That's exactly what Victor Lustig did with the Eiffel Tower, earning him a spot in the Hall of Fame of con artists. But who was this man? And how did he pull off such an unbelievable scam? Let's dive into the life of Victor Lustig, the mastermind whose audacity knew no bounds. Born in 1890 in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Victor Lustig was no ordinary child. With a mischievous glint in his eye and a silver tongue fluent in multiple languages, he could charm anyone he met. But it wasn't just charm that set him apart. It was his audacious cunning that would elevate him to the ranks of history's most infamous con artists. As we unravel his story, you'll see how Lustig's early experiences with poverty and injustice shaped his view of the world. He saw life as a series of opportunities for those bold enough to take them. And take them he did, through a variety of cons and scams across Europe. However, none of his earlier tricks could compare to the audacity of selling the Eiffel Tower. The year was 1925, and the Eiffel Tower, though beloved now, was seen by some as a costly and useless relic. When Lustig read a newspaper article about the city's struggles with the tower's maintenance costs, a light bulb went off in his head. He concocted a plan so bold, so outrageous, that it was almost believable. Posing as a government official, Lustig invited a group of wealthy scrap metal dealers to a confidential meeting. He convinced them that the government had decided to sell the tower for scrap, and they were the chosen few who could bid for it. The scene was set, the stakes were high, and Victor Lustig played his role to perfection. As we follow his scheme, you'll be amazed at how Lustig exploited human greed, vanity, and the illusion of exclusivity. He created a world where he was the gatekeeper, and the only entry was through him. His understanding of human psychology allowed him to manipulate his marks beautifully, leading them to believe that they were not just buying metal, but securing a piece of history. Stay tuned as we explore how Victor Lustig not only sold the Eiffel Tower once, but returned to Paris to sell it yet again. Through his story, we will explore the themes of deception, ambition, and the art of the con. How did he manage to evade capture, and what was his ultimate fate? These questions and more will be answered as we delve deeper into the life of history's most daring scammer. Born in 1890 in the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, young Victor Lustig quickly realized that charm and wit could open doors that hard work alone could not. Fluent in multiple languages and possessing a magnetic personality, he was a natural at winning people over. One of his earliest schemes was as audacious as it was clever. In the bustling streets filled with wealthy tourists, Victor would approach with an enticing proposition. He claimed to possess a magical device, a box that could duplicate money. With a sly demonstration, he would place a genuine banknote into the box, turn some dials, and miraculously produce a second, identical note. Mesmerized by the prospect of endless wealth, his targets eagerly handed over large sums to purchase this miraculous machine. By the time they realized they'd been duped, Victor was long gone. These early cons were more than petty thefts. They were the training ground where Victor honed his craft. He learned that people are often willing to believe the unbelievable when driven by greed. Each successful scam emboldened him, setting the stage for the grand deceptions that would make him a legend. Imagine a lavish Parisian hotel lobby in the Roaring '20s. Crystal chandeliers bathe the room in a warm glow as Victor Lustig, impeccably dressed, engages a wealthy banker in casual conversation. Have you heard about the latest advancement in duplicative currency technology? Victor asks, his eyes twinkling with secret knowledge. The banker's curiosity is piqued. Duplicative currency. That sounds illegal. Victor chuckles softly. Only if misused. But in the right hands, it's a financial revolution. Intrigued, the banker presses for more information. Eventually, Victor agrees to a private demonstration of his so-called money box. In an opulent suite, Victor carefully inserts a crisp 100-franc note into an ornate mahogany box adorned with brass knobs and levers. He turns the dials with theatrical precision. "We'll need to wait 6 hours for the process to complete," he explains. The anticipation builds. When the time elapses, Victor opens the box to reveal not one but 2 identical 100-franc notes. The banker examines both bills, amazed at their authenticity. "This is incredible," he exclaims. "Think of the possibilities." Victor feigns reluctance before finally agreeing to sell the box for a hefty price. Overwhelmed by visions of limitless wealth, the banker pays without hesitation. Of course, the box is a sham. It contains a hidden compartment loaded with genuine notes for the demonstration. By the time the banker discovers the ruse, Victor has vanished. This scam wasn't just about trickery. It was psychological theater. Victor expertly manipulated his mark's greed and excitement, making the impossible seem plausible. His performance was so convincing that even the most skeptical couldn't help but be drawn in. The Eiffel Tower scam, one of the most audacious cons in history, didn't just pop out of thin air. It was the result of meticulous planning and a brilliant spark of inspiration from Victor Lustig. It all started one morning in 1925, when Victor was flipping through a newspaper. An article caught his eye. It discussed the dilapidated state of the Eiffel Tower and the enormous costs associated with its upkeep and potential dismantling. This was during a time when the French government was struggling with post-war economic hardships. For Victor, this was not just news, it was an opportunity. Imagine sitting in a cafe, reading about an iconic landmark crumbling away, and deciding, "I'm going to sell that." That was the moment the Eiffel Tower scam was born. Victor knew that pulling this off would require more than his usual charm and sleight of hand. It needed solid, believable props. He began by crafting a false identity as a government official. But Victor went far beyond just forging a new set of documents. He created an entire persona complete with a backstory that fit perfectly within the French Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, the department supposedly responsible for the maintenance of the tower. Next, Victor needed more than just a convincing role. He needed the official paperwork to back it up. He worked with skilled forgers to create not just one, but an entire stack of official-looking documents. These included government letterheads, internal correspondence, and even fake contracts ready for the winning bid on the tower's metal. Every document was crafted to withstand scrutiny, with the official seals and the bureaucratic language that would be expected of a genuine government process. With the stage set, Victor then crafted a list of potential marks, the most prominent scrap metal dealers in Paris. He understood that his scam needed the right audience, a group of people who had the means and the motive to believe in the government's desire to sell the tower discreetly. He sent out letters on the forged ministry letterhead, inviting them to a confidential meeting to discuss a matter of national importance. In these letters, Victor posed as a government official tasked with handling the discreet sale of the Eiffel Tower. He insisted on the utmost secrecy, hinting at public uproar should the news leak out. This setup was brilliant because it created a bubble of exclusivity and urgency. The dealers were made to feel they were being let in on a top-secret government deal, which was too good and too patriotically important to pass up. Victor's preparation for the meetings was as detailed as his documents. He rented rooms in one of the most luxurious hotels in Paris to hold the meetings, ensuring every detail screamed government official. On the day of the meetings, he dressed the part perfectly, with a tailored suit that matched his forged identity's stature and the aura of a bureaucrat in a hurry. As Victor stepped into the role, every word and gesture was calculated to build trust and authority. He was no longer Victor Lustig, the con artist. He was a high-ranking official, carrying the weight of a decision that could affect the national pride and finances of France. The scam was set, the stage was ready, and all Victor had to do was play his part to perfection, which he did with the ease of a seasoned actor stepping into a well-rehearsed role. Once the scene was set with forged documents and a new identity, Victor Lustig moved on to the next critical phase of his scam, selecting the right targets and setting the stage for a high-stakes meeting that would go down in history. Victor meticulously combed through the list of Paris's top scrap metal dealers. He needed businessmen who were not just wealthy and influential, but also those who could be manipulated, those whose ambitions could cloud their judgment. After thorough research, he narrowed down his list to a select few who fit his criteria perfectly. Each one received a personal invitation on the impressive forged government letterhead, summoning them to a discreet meeting at a luxurious hotel. The letters hinted at a project that could make them part of a national solution, too sensitive to discuss openly. The hotel suite was arranged to perfection, creating the aura of government efficiency mixed with the need for confidentiality. When the dealers arrived, they found Victor, clad in a suit that spelled authority, complete with the demeanor of a man burdened with national responsibility. He greeted each dealer with a mix of formality and urgency, setting them at ease while also piquing their curiosity. As the meeting began, Victor laid out the situation. The Eiffel Tower, a beloved monument, had become a financial drain on resources in post-war France. The cost of maintenance and repairs was unsustainable, and the government had reluctantly decided it had to be dismantled. The secrecy was due to the potential public outcry such news could provoke. Here, Victor played on their nationalism and their greed, presenting them with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire tons of valuable iron. Among the dealers was André Poisson, a somewhat successful but not top-tier dealer with ambitions to elevate his status in the Parisian business community. Victor saw in him the perfect mark. Poisson was eager, a bit naive, and desperate to clinch a deal that could set him apart from his competitors. Victor targeted him for a private conversation after the group meeting. In this private setting, Victor switched his tactics from official to confidential, leaning in as though sharing a secret he hadn't told the others. He expressed personal doubts about the bureaucracy and the slow wheels of government, lamenting how such inefficiencies could hinder the quick disposal of the Eiffel Tower. He subtly suggested that a small encouragement could speed things up, insinuating a bribe without directly saying so. This was a psychological play straight out of Victor's con artist handbook, implying corruption indirectly, allowing the mark to conclude that it was their own idea. Poisson, seeing a chance not just to score a business triumph, but also to participate in what seemed like a minor act of corruption for the greater good, was hooked. The stage was set, the con was in motion, and all Victor had to do was reel in his catch. Poisson negotiated nervously, eager to please and afraid to lose the opportunity. Victor, with the patience of a seasoned fisherman, let him sweat, only gently tugging the line to keep him on the hook. By the end of their conversation, Poisson was ready to do whatever it took to secure the deal. He agreed to pay a substantial upfront bribe to ensure he was the one walking away with the Eiffel Tower's iron. The paperwork was signed, hands were shaken, and Poisson left the meeting with dreams of grandeur, completely unaware that he had just bought into one of the greatest scams in history. Victor Lustig counted the bribe money, a smirk playing on his lips. The scam worked perfectly, not just because of the detailed preparations or the convincing performance, but because it tapped into the greed, ambition, and sometimes the innocence of its marks. As Poisson stepped out into the Paris streets, plans and calculations racing through his mind, Victor was already pondering his next move. How long before he could pull the same scam again? With the money safely tucked away, Victor disappeared into the night, leaving behind nothing but echoes of his false promises. Victor Lustig's first sale of the Eiffel Tower was a triumph of deceit, a masterstroke of con artistry that filled his pockets and inflated his ego. Yet for a man like Victor, once was never enough. The ease and success of the first scam ignited a bold idea. Why not do it all over again? The decision to repeat the scam was driven by a mix of greed and the thrill of the challenge. Victor was intoxicated by the power of his manipulations and confident in the belief that Paris was still a big enough playground to pull off the same trick twice. Before launching the second round, Victor took stock of what had worked and what might be improved. He knew the blueprint was solid, but this time he planned to cast a wider net, targeting a new group of scrap metal dealers who hadn't heard of the first sale. To minimize the risk of exposure, He updated his forged documents to reflect a more urgent tone, hinting at increased governmental pressures and the need for absolute discretion. He also decided to alter his persona slightly, adopting a more harried demeanor of a bureaucrat under enormous pressure to rid the government of what was being framed as a national embarrassment. With these adjustments in place, Victor sent out a new batch of invitations, each crafted to create an irresistible allure of secrecy and potential profit. The second group of dealers was just as eager as the first, seduced by the promise of exclusive rights to the tons of iron from the iconic tower. The meetings were conducted with the same meticulous attention to detail, the same persuasive eloquence, and the same fabricated urgency that had made the first scam so successful. However, the outcome of the second scam was starkly different. This time, Victor chose a dealer named Henry, who, like Andrew Poisson, was ambitious but lacked the caution of more seasoned businessmen. The deal proceeded smoothly at first, with Henry swallowing the bait whole. However, after the handshake and the exchange of money, doubt began to nag at Henry. Unlike Poisson, who had kept silent out of embarrassment, Henry decided to verify the details of the transaction. When the inconsistencies became too glaring to ignore, he went to the authorities. The fallout was immediate and severe. The story of the Eiffel Tower being sold twice hit the newspapers, and Paris was abuzz with the audacity of the scam. The police launched a full investigation, and Victor's description was circulated widely. The scandal rocked the city, tarnishing the reputations of everyone involved and alerting potential marks to the existence of such a con man at large. Victor, realizing that the gig was up, fled Paris. His escape was hastened by the realization that he could no longer operate in the shadows. The second scam, while initially successful, ultimately led to his exposure and contributed to his eventual capture. It was a bitter lesson in the limits of repeat deception, proving that even the most clever con has its risks when greed overcomes caution. The repeated scam marked the beginning of the end for Victor Lustig's career in high-stakes fraud, ushering in a period of flight and evasion from law enforcement across continents. In a narrative brimming with audacious scams and flamboyant deceit, Victor Lustig's engagement with Al Capone stands out as a testament to his daring. This wasn't just any mark. This was Al Capone, one of the most feared gangsters in America, a man whose name was synonymous with the violent underbelly of Prohibition-era Chicago. Victor's play with Capone showcased not only a clash of criminal minds, but also a high-stakes dance on the razor's edge of trust and treachery. The scheme Victor planned was simple yet fraught with peril. Knowing Capone's reputation for ruthless violence, Victor approached him with a proposition that seemed to offer mutual benefit. He told Capone he had a foolproof scheme to make a significant profit, but needed an initial investment to get it off the ground. Capone, intrigued and always looking for a profitable angle, agreed and handed over $50,000, a substantial sum at the time. However, Victor's plan had a twist that was as brilliant as it was risky. Instead of using the money for any high-yielding scheme, he simply held on to it. After a month, he returned every single dollar to Capone, claiming that the deal had fallen through. This move was calculated. Victor was betting on building a reputation as an honest man in Capone's eyes. In a world where trust was rare and deceit was the norm, returning the money untouched was intended to set Victor apart from the usual crowd of swindlers and earn Capone's confidence. The gamble paid off. Capone, surprisingly impressed by Victor's apparent integrity and straightforwardness, rewarded him with $5,000 for his honesty. It was a masterful manipulation, a play that involved no loss to Capone, but gained Victor not only a profit, but also the gangster's respect, a currency as valuable as any cash profit in the criminal underworld. This engagement highlighted Victor's keen understanding of human psychology. He knew that even a hardened criminal like Capone valued trust and loyalty, perhaps even more so given his usual dealings, which were mired in betrayal and deceit. By positioning himself as trustworthy, Victor manipulated one of the most powerful men in the underworld without firing a shot or forging a single document. The incident with Capone also underscores a crucial aspect of Victor's criminal philosophy. He thrived on the thrill of the con, the challenge of outsmarting someone, whether they were a gullible millionaire or a notorious gangster. His success lay in his ability to adapt his tactics based on his mark's background and desires, a chameleonic skill that made him one of the most formidable con artists of his time. However, as thrilling as these escapades were, they also painted a target on Victor's back. Engaging with figures like Capone meant playing a dangerous game, one that, while profitable in the short term, contributed to his eventual downfall, drawing the attention not just of law enforcement, but also of the criminal elite who were not as forgiving as the public victims of his scams. Victor Lustig's criminal exploits had catapulted him into the annals of infamy, but every con has its limits. After years of running game after game and outsmarting some of the most cautious minds, Victor began to push the boundaries even further by diving into the world of counterfeiting, a move that would ultimately lead to his dramatic downfall. Transitioning from flamboyant scams like selling the Eiffel Tower to the intricate and risky operation of producing counterfeit money, Victor aimed to tap into the lucrative well of forgery. His counterfeit operations were sophisticated, relying on high-quality materials and expert craftsmanship to produce bills that were nearly indistinguishable from genuine currency. This was not just another con. It was a massive operation that threatened the very stability of the U.S. economy. Victor's confidence was sky-high, and he operated with a bravado that left little room for caution. He moved large quantities of fake bills, circulating them through various channels across the United States. However, the scale of his operations eventually attracted the attention of the Secret Service, an organization with resources and determination that matched Victor's cunning. The climax of Victor's criminal career came when the Secret Service launched a sting operation specifically designed to capture him. The agents had been tracking his moves, gathering intelligence, and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They learned of a location and time where Victor would personally oversee a significant exchange of counterfeit bills. The operation was set in a nondescript warehouse, a typical meeting point for under-the-radar dealings. The Secret Service agents positioned themselves strategically, blending in with the shadows as Victor and his associates arrived. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the anticipation of a major bust. As Victor handed over a suitcase filled with counterfeit bills, the agents made their move, swarming the area and catching everyone off guard. Victor, always a smooth talker, tried to talk his way out, weaving a web of lies on the spot. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the agents were not swayed by his charm. It was a dramatic end to a high-stakes game. Handcuffed and outmaneuvered, Victor was led away, his empire of deceit crashing down around him. The arrest sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld and made headlines across the country. The man who had sold the Eiffel Tower, who had duped Al Capone, and who had circulated thousands of counterfeit bills, was finally behind bars. His trial was a spectacle, drawing crowds eager to see the downfall of the notorious con artist. In the courtroom, the weight of his crimes caught up with him. The evidence presented by the Secret Service was damning, detailing the extent and sophistication of his counterfeiting operation. Victor, for all his charm and cunning, could not escape the consequences of his actions. He was sentenced to a lengthy term in the most secure prison of the time, Alcatraz. Reflecting on Victor Lustig's downfall, it's clear that his overconfidence and greed were his greatest pitfalls. His shift to counterfeiting marked a departure from the personal touch of his earlier scams, exposing him to law enforcement agencies equipped to deal with large-scale financial crimes. The sting operation that captured him was not just a physical ambush, but also a tactical maneuver that exploited the very audacity that had made him successful, proving that even the most cunning criminal minds could not always outsmart justice. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with journalists, socialites, and curious onlookers eager to witness the downfall of the man who had outwitted the world. Victor Lustig stood before the judge, his once dapper appearance now overshadowed by the gravity of his situation. The prosecution presented a parade of witnesses, each recounting tales of deception and loss. One victim, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and admiration, confessed, "He made me believe in the impossible. I don't know whether to hate him or applaud him." Throughout the trial, Victor remained composed, occasionally offering a wry smile or a witty retort. But charm could not save him now. The evidence was overwhelming. When the guilty verdict was read, a hush fell over the room. Victor straightened his jacket, turned to the judge and said, "Well, it appears my luck has finally run out." Sentenced to Alcatraz, the infamous island prison, Victor faced a world unlike any he had known. The cold stone walls and iron bars were a stark contrast to the luxurious hotels and grand cities where he once plied his trade. Life in Alcatraz was harsh and unrelenting. Cut off from the outside world, Victor's health began to decline. Yet, even in prison, stories circulated of him attempting to swindle fellow inmates and guards, proving that old habits die hard. In a final act befitting his reputation, it's said that Victor crafted an escape plan, but whether he attempted it or it was merely a rumor remains part of his enigmatic legacy. Victor Lustig's story is a testament to the allure of the con artist, a blend of brilliance and moral ambiguity. His exploits forced authorities to rethink security measures and ushered in new methods of fraud detection. But beyond the tangible impacts, his life invites us to ponder deeper questions. Why are we so fascinated by those who flout the rules with style and audacity? Perhaps it's because they reflect a daring we secretly admire, even as we condemn their actions. Victor Lustig lived a life that danced on the edge of possibility, daring to pull off schemes that others wouldn't even dream of attempting. His extraordinary cons were not just crimes but performances that captivated and bewildered. In the end, his story serves as a cautionary tale about the seductive power of deception. It reminds us that while cunning and charisma can open many doors, they can just as easily lead to one's downfall. What do you think about Victor Lustig's life and his choices? Were his scams a display of unmatched wit or a condemnable exploitation of trust? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story as intriguing as I did, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more fascinating tales from history. Your views help us explore more stories that challenge our morals and satisfy our curiosity about the past's complex characters.